Okay, we are live. And Luke, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Great, that's fantastic. And maybe we'll check with everyone if everybody else can hear us. If you guys can hear us, maybe just drop a quick note in the chat, and we'll kick it off. Loud and clear, Lachlan. Thank you so much. All right, we got a hi Kylie. We got a whole crowd over here. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Stacy. Cool. So let's jump into it. First of all, thank you very much, everyone, for jumping on this webinar. It's pretty early here in Melbourne, and it's always good to wake up early when it gets a little bit cold. That's it's not true, but um, today we're talking with Luke Marshall, who's the account group director at Tiger Pistol, and Luke has a massive background when it comes to advertising, especially in the B2C space, and specifically around Google and social media, pay-per-click, and the list goes on. But those are some of the strengths of Luke. I'm Shahin, and I founded Growth Colony and X Growth, where we also specialize in marketing, but we specifically work with B2B companies in the technology sector. Now, I'm not going to go on too much on the details. I want to pass it on to Luke. Luke, if you could maybe give us a little bit of background about yourself, that would be awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Shahin. So, as mentioned, my name's Luke Marshall. I started my digital marketing career probably about 12 years ago within agencies, working my way up from within a media agency in Sydney at ZO, then relocated to Singapore for a role over there. And while I was over there, got exposure to the APAC market, working across multiple markets for clients like Microsoft, Sony Pictures, and others. And during that time, worked for Google APAC in a creative role, and enjoyed that role for 2.5 years before relocating back to Australia and consulting for a little while before picking up another role with another big tech company called Facebook. And that was a lot of fun. Did that for 2 years and have returned to the agency space since then, servicing clients, with my most recent role being at Tiger Pistol as a group account director.
Yeah, it's such an amazing background, especially with Google and Facebook. And I mean, Tiger Pistol right now is doing some really amazing work. But thanks a lot for that introduction, Luke. Now let's jump into. So I think there are 6 main topics that we previously spoke about, and we want to definitely make sure we cover in this webinar. We want to talk about website and some of the basic components that we should take into consideration with website. We'll talk about pixels and retargeting, especially when it comes to paid media. Some of the basics around ads, data capture, CRM, the 80-20 rule of CPA, which is cost of acquisition, and basically acquiring new customers. And we'll talk lastly about flashy new stuff, which is MarTech. So let's jump into it. Also, just a note for everyone: if you have questions at some point during the talk, please feel free to just put it in the chat box, and we'll have a look at them from time to time and make sure we cover them. But look, let's jump into it. So I think the first thing that we want to talk about is website, right? And the question is, when people look at the website, what are the fundamentals? Like, what are the things that you see a lot of people get wrong? Not get wrong, but maybe they neglect, or they should definitely put more emphasis on when it comes to the website.
Yeah, great question. So with websites, generally the first thing people think of when you think of digital marketing, it's like your online business card. It's your presence. It's the easiest thing to look at with marketing as well, because it's something you own, and it's something that you can key into Chrome or Safari and browse and see. It's very tangible, and I think with that comes a bit of a trap around what people over focus on. So often emerging businesses or businesses that have started prioritize the website and over polish it. So often I'll hear war stories of agencies that have sold in the dream and encouraged someone to get a really robust and well-designed and well-oiled website, when really you've got to take a step back and think about what the purpose of that website is. And that purpose might be to inform your audience, it might be to convert leads, or it might be an educational piece around the efficacy of your product and why it's important. And so when you take that step back and look at what the website purpose is, it doesn't need to be the latest and greatest and shiniest thing, even though it is something you own and it's your pride and joy. So yeah, I think that's the first step. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely with you. A lot of companies come in and say, $50,000, $30,000, $40,000 for a website, and it's it kind of becomes the centerpiece of everything, while the main questions are neglected, just like you said, that hey, this is supposed to convert, and it doesn't. And there are things, I think, within the website that also get neglected and don't get as much attention as it usually should. What are some of those in your opinion?
Well, the most obvious one is, other than the visuals, which I just sort of spoke about, is the copy. So, does the copy convert? Is it aesthetically pleasing to the eye? Is it crafted well? Does it read well? And a really simple test for determining if the copy is up to spec. And by copy, I mean text on the website. Sorry if people are wondering. And look at the copy and read it out loud. The sentences should be short, punchy, and get to the point. And the read it out loud test can just really help with determining, does it make sense, and will it be something that my readers are likely to absorb?
Yeah, that's such a good point. I mean, one of the things that we see quite often is a lot of people go to start doing the design of the website first, right? Where there's a lot of recommendation on, hey, hold off on the design, get the copy, the text of the website right, and then wrap the design around that. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing that is going to convert basically users is going to be the copy that they read and the message that you're trying to send. So I think you're absolutely right on the copy part, on the dot.
But the copy is probably not the only element that needs to be sort of in check for your website as well. SEO is a term that gets thrown around quite a lot, and it's definitely important, and probably one of those quick wins that we've identified in terms of getting the basics right. So you can get a plugin for your WordPress presence, like Yoast or Rank SEO, and basically get the basics right in terms of SEO. So things like getting all the links, the descriptions, your headlines, and if you're doing those things and focusing on them in terms of the basics, and your website's in a niche, chances are you're going to index well for the terms that you're most likely to be searched for, which are generally your name, if you're prompting and running a particular brand, and the services you offer are a lot more competitive. But one thing people need to keep in mind with SEO on the other side is it's a long game. So if you're looking to get a presence up quickly on Google. The reality is that won't happen, and so just making sure that you take the time to build your links and get things going in a patient and disciplined manner will generally be a better approach than paying top dollar to an agency who might be promising things that aren't a reality.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of those out there. And what about the numbers? Like, what should I, I'm setting up a website, right?
Yeah.
What are the numbers do you think that are important that in terms of the analytics of my website that I should be looking at? The kind of, again, the basic ones. Not, we know we can get very advanced with the
Yeah.
analytics, but like, what are the basic ones?
Yeah. So I guess one of the main metrics for your website is visits. So are people visiting your website, and how many of them? Now, there's lots of ways to interpret that. There's sessions, users, impressions, but if you get some sort of baseline metric that you find agreeable on how many people are coming to your site, that's a good place to start. And then what you want to check is your bounce rate. So how many people are coming to your website and on that page are bouncing off? And that's a percentage rate that you'll come. Generally, the lower it is, the more engaging your copy and page is. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you've got a very short site with not many pages, your bounce rate's likely to be higher, which isn't necessarily an issue. But if you've got a longer site that has a lot of detail, then that's something you want to keep an eye on. The other metric that I'd be focusing on a lot is conversion, which can be measured in a number of ways, and it doesn't have to be technical. So say you've got an inquiry form on your website. You don't necessarily need to set up pixels and goals, although they are recommended things to do. What you could do is just count literally the number of inquiries you get. So say you've got 5 inquiries per month, your site's in its early days, and you've got 100 visitors to your website in that month, then all of a sudden you've got a percentage or a conversion rate of 5%, which is relatively good. Like conversion, anyway, anything between 1% to say 10% and above is really healthy conversions. And I often work with people who think, these ads or this site isn't working, but you've got to remember that getting someone to take a behavior who's visit a website is actually really challenging. And so those conversion rates of 1 in 100 or above are generally a good benchmark or guide.
Yeah, it's very challenging to make somebody make that decision. That's very true. Okay. Now that's on the website. Is there anything else that you think we should cover on the website before we go on talk about pixels and retargeting and those good stuff?
Yeah. Look, I think as long as the website's clean, functional, converting, and has the basics on SEO, I think you're on the right path. The other tip before we move on is it's a really fun exercise to Google old logos or old websites of brands you know and love. So Google's original logo, it looks like garbage now. So your website will go through many iterations, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a website that doesn't look like a piece of art right away.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that kind of comes to the mentality, like in the tech space as well, the whole minimum viable product, where put it out there. Don't try to build a spaceship from day one. Build a cart, put it out there, and really get that response, and see and build on top of that. That's I think that applies here as well. Cool. Now let's move to pixels and retargeting. Now, pixels, because we're talking fundamentals here. Maybe I'll quickly explain. It's a piece of JavaScript, a couple lines of JavaScript that you put on your website, your app, your whatever digital product you have, so that you can communicate with a paid media platform, whether it's Facebook, Google, Pinterest, whoever it is, that the traffic that you're sending from their side is taking a certain action on your website. Let's say they are making an inquiry and therefore getting back to that platform and say, I want you to send more of these people to my website. That's the general concept of the pixel. But I think a lot of people, Luke, when we talk about setting up the Google Pixel or setting up the Facebook Pixel, think that, all right, I must be running ads. And therefore, I now need to go and set up the Pixel. What are your thoughts on that? And maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a little more to it than just installing the Pixel, which is definitely a valid step and something that people should be undertaking. So in terms of ensuring that it's set up, that there's software out there like Google Tag Manager, which can hold all the tags. It is a technical tool, but doesn't require a knowledge of code, and enables you to put the tags in a container that then allows you to remarket. So the first step of getting the pixel in place is done, and there's also WordPress plugins that can help with that too. The next step is activating them. So imagine someone visited your website, which let's call it petestools.com. I'm not sure what the URL is for that, but whether it's taken, I'm sure it is. But let's imagine it's Pete's Tools. So someone visits Pete's Tools, they browse a particular item, and then leave the website. Now, in the ordinary world, that's it. You've got to rely on the user to remember to go and visit Pete's Tools again. With the pixel setup and ads, you can actually prompt someone to revisit Pete's Tools, which is called retargeting or remarketing, and it can get very sophisticated as well. But a baseline of just prompting people to revisit the site can be a really effective use of ad budget in a way that doesn't rely you to sell the farm, because you're just retargeting a small portion of users that have visited the site. Can be really cost-effective way of getting that extra traffic and getting those extra results.
Yeah, cool. And on the previous topic that we were having a chat, we have one question where it's, where can I find a benchmark for conversion rates for my industry? It's a good question.
That's a really good question. And obviously it varies from industry to industry. And I sort of threw out the 1 to 10%. In something that's quite niche, the benchmark for conversion rate might be even lower. So there's a lot of good websites out there that actually provide this information. HubSpot is one that I like to go to, but a quick Google, generally you're looking for a conversion rate, benchmark report, and the industry you're in. So for example, e-commerce might be the industry you're in. And so e-commerce industry benchmark report and the year might give you the results that you're after.
And the year is pretty important. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So that's on Pixel and retargeting. So the advice that you have over here is to set up that Pixel before you even decide to go heavy on your ads and start.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So maybe tell us a little bit about this, just to drive that home. Can we cover that one last time?
Yeah, good shout. So worst case scenario for you would be setting up your website, turning the ads on, whether they're Google ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, and pushing traffic to your site in a leaky bucket. And by leaky bucket, I mean one that doesn't have the pixel set up, because if you're pushing traffic to your site without retargeting, you're missing an opportunity to convert. Think about it as a courting period. So would you ask someone to marry you on your first date? Absolutely not. But with retargeting, you can prompt someone and go on multiple dates and multiple visits to your website in a way that will unlock that conversion or marriage, use my example, a bit later down the road. And that's a big leak, and I'm glad you called it out.
Yeah, that's that happens very often. I mean, we see it very. I think we were having a chat some time ago, and there was someone who asked that question about wallpapers, right? And the question was, I've put an ad out, telling people to buy our services to put wallpapers on their in their house, but nothing has happened. And they were specifically talking about Facebook, where your answer was you have to take them on a journey. You can't just jump in and say, buy these wallpaper services, where you go through awareness, you go through being aware of the problem, being aware of the solution, being aware of your product, and then going ahead for buying. So maybe let's open that up a little bit and talk about that in terms of a lot of people run social ads, right? And a lot of people hear about Facebook and social media are the place to go when it comes to advertising and getting new customers. What are some of the fundamentals that people have to keep in mind when they're going to social to basically drive traffic to their website and get conversions?
Yeah, great question. So social media can be a bit of a trap, and in terms of effectiveness and getting traffic to your site. And there's a few things to look out for. One of the really immediate things that you need to be mindful of is the metrics themselves. So you might want to sell something on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn and making posts that you put a lot of time into and hoping to get traffic or even sales. The reality is, if you're focusing on likes, comments, or engagement, there's a very good chance that won't correlate with a sales outcome. And so there's nothing necessarily wrong with those metrics if your goal is to provoke conversation and educate or run videos. But if your goal is to get traffic to your site to convert, one thing I see a lot in the social space is an over-investment in time that they spend on social. So, crafting the perfect post that only 5 or 10 people see within their feed, when optimum use of that time might be crafting those really well-crafted posts, but putting some budget behind them so that you can recruit a new audience, and the effort that you are putting into the post is rewarded by an audience.
Gotcha. And what about taking them through the steps until they're ready to buy? What about, because we also have a question about retargeting, and maybe it would be good to and Karen will Karen will definitely come to your question, but I think it's good to talk about retargeting, where Michelle is asking if we could explain that in again and maybe a little bit simpler. So maybe going through that. So you have that first post where it's a bit of an awareness post, which is it's a really cool video, and it will allow people to know more about your brand. What happens then after all the way to making a sale?
Yeah, great. So let's talk about a sale. Like what's a good example? Like say I'm trying to sell services. So the services I provide might be something like house cleaning. Now, house cleaning is it's a competitive market. It's an approach that is very localized. And say I've run an ad promoting my house cleaning services. Now, one approach might be buy my house cleaning services now, which if someone's not looking at the moment, that generally is going to put them off. So going down the journey approach, or the retargeting approach, might be you show a video of the local suburb you're in, with houses or with cleaning services that prompt people to think about house cleaning. And you might even frame the question, looking for a house cleaner, XYZ services can take care of your needs. Now, that might not convert immediately, but with a video, it's you can retarget people who have shown an interest in that video. You can retarget people who have clicked through the website to read more. You can even retarget people who've engaged with your page on Facebook in any way, shape, or form. So you're showing people this video, and then they're showing a flicker of interest, but maybe not going through and converting and buying what you're selling. So the next step in the process would be the retargeting. So you're not targeting everyone again because you've already done that with your initial video. What you're doing next is retargeting people who have shown an interest. So you've got an invitation to talk about it a bit more. So maybe you talk about your house cleaning, rather than awareness of house cleaning, you're talking about the services and what they cost. So, XYZ house cleaning services available in Elwood for $100 an hour. And that call to action was registered against people who already shown an interest, and then they can click through to the site and say, and maybe register for a quote or whatever it is. But let's say, for argument's sake, that we still haven't got them on the hook. So they've clicked through to your website, they've registered for a quote, and for whatever reason they've dropped off. What you can then do is further retargeting to someone who's taken a specific behavior on your page and prompt them again. And this might be with Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads. You can even do it with Google search. There's remarketing lists for search ads, which are really effective for people at that pointy end of the funnel, searching for whatever it is. So you've registered a quote, and then XYZ house cleaning services, complete a quote now. And rather than, while that journey is more nuanced and more elaborate, what it does is over time converts in a much more higher fashion, because it's acknowledging each step of the journey and crafting a particular message to where that person is in the journey. So if we flick back to what I was saying initially, which was buy house cleaning services now, you can see the difference between the two journeys and how they might interact more favorably.
Yeah, exactly. So to kind of summarize it is, show the video, people who show interest, show them the price, and then the way you show them the price is by retargeting them. And then these audience, the next step is to retarget them again with the selling offer. So that's the whole concept of retargeting. And you can do retargeting for multiple instances, just like Lou said. Cool. Now, Karam also has a question about deal offers, but we'll definitely come back to that after. Let's talk about Google Ads, because I know you want to talk about Google Ads as well, as a fairly one of the better ways for a starting business to look into advertising. Tell us maybe a little bit about that.
Yeah, look, advertising can be really expensive, and it's really important to focus and ensure that every dollar you spend, you're getting something back. And while Google Ads are really expensive in terms of cost per click, they're really far down the funnel. So coming back to my cleaning services example, if you're searching for cleaning services and in a particular area like Elwood, the cost per click might be $5, $10, $20. But if someone clicks through and converts, you can work out the lifetime value of that customer really effectively. So say it costs $100 to convert that customer in terms of the cost per click, and then them registering and signing up for cleaning services. The lifetime value of that customer could be even more pronounced, because when you think about it, a person doesn't need cleaning services once. It could be once, twice, 20 times a year. So it becomes really important to spend money where people are searching at that intent part of the funnel and capitalize in a way that returns a dollar for you.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It's very intent based, and kind of it's a mix of both the retargeting, the Karam's question, both retargeting and website, where Karam asks, does offering deals and sweepstakes work? What is your take on that?
I am reluctant to jump into that right away. I actually think it's so if someone hasn't heard of you and you offer something like 5, 10, 50% off, it devalues what you're offering almost immediately. The place where I'd say offering and sweepstakes work really effectively is to your existing customers. So say you've had a customer who's purchased from you once, twice, 3 times. An offer that might be compelling for them is, hey customer, I see you've spent some time with me, you've paid for my services, you're a valued customer of mine. How would you like my services as a 3-pack for 25% off? And then in that format, you've got a customer you've already qualified, you know they've paid for something, and you're rewarding that behavior by doing something that looks after both of you. They get a discount and you get predictable revenue in a way that works for you.
Gotcha. That's a good answer. Abhishek talks about efficient ways to market on a budget as an entrepreneur. I think we spoke about, like we touched on Google, that it's probably because of high intent elements on there, even though the cost per click is high, could be an extremely powerful tool. Let's move on. Is there anything else on ads that you think we should cover before we move to like data capture and CRM?
Yeah, I think the main shout for ads is get your remarketing set up. Work out your cost per click and work out your lifetime value, and spend small amounts. Test, make sure you're getting a conversion before ratcheting up. It's easy to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars if you don't know what you're doing. And just paying attention to those numbers we spoke about will set you on the right path.
Okay, great. Let's talk about data capture and CRM, and that's probably going to be a little bit different based on the industry. If you're heavy B2C, data capture becomes a lot more important, and as you grow a CRM with deal dashboards become more prominent. But what's the importance of having those data captures? Why should we worry? And what are some of the mistakes that people make when they start on their marketing when it specifically comes to data?
Yeah, great. So data capture enables a lot of things. I'd say the main one is the ability to re-communicate with that person you've captured. So if someone's given you their email, then that's an invitation to contact them again. And no longer do you need ads to get their attention. You can pop up in their email inbox and do that as well. Often a newbie mistake that I see with data capture is too many fields. So you've got first name, last name, occupation, age, where they live. You don't need all that information. It can be quite scary. And with that amount of fields, the amount of people that you'll get completing all that data is reduced, and also probably unnecessary unless you're in a very involved B2B enterprise level lead qualification sort of data capture approach. So I guess keeping the fields to a minimum, ensuring that you get the email address, and ensuring that you've got permission to use that information again, which is sometimes implicit in your privacy policy on the site, but it doesn't hurt to enable that as well. And another thing is double opt-in when someone registers. So it's not automatically necessary, but I think double opt-in means confirming that you've got the email address off them, and what that does is qualify the data you're capturing just that element further.
That's right. That's right. And I think, you know, I speak to a lot of people, especially in B2B, just like you said, that you bring up CRM, and some of the small businesses haven't really adopted the CRM, or they're definitely not using it properly. I mean, in our space, which is again B2B, CRM is kind of the Bible of it, of the marketing Bible, and it's what you refer to constantly in terms of tracking your deals and where they at. And you know, the moment you have 10 or 15 deals going at the same time, it's just so difficult to keep track of them. And having a CRM that allows you to do that it's just life saving to some extent. All right, so making sure now, if somebody is with B2B, the challenge is you have a CRM. You might not, you know, the CRM, especially in the early days, might not even be super important if it's connected to your website, because you might have a couple inquiries, and those are really high purchases, and you can just put them in there. There's some that are word of mouth. What are some of the data captures that companies that are selling cheaper items? By cheaper, I mean the ticket item is just smaller. Should take into consideration when it comes to capturing data.
Yeah,
this could be in the e-commerce space. This could be, that. Yeah.
So quick wins, if you've got a lower ticket item, is a newsletter. It's signing up for. People might not want to purchase your widget or your low ticket item straight away for whatever reason, and having a newsletter offer, either to capture that information so they can find out more information about product, to build that database is really is a really cool and efficient way to start. The other shout is matched audiences or custom audiences. So with this database, you are able to run ads to anyone who's registered in that database, which is valuable enough because they've shown an interest in your product and they've been on your website, and it's another form of retargeting. But where it gets really powerful with your CRM or your database is lookalikes. So you can go after people who look like your database, and that's a really efficient way of extending reach and scale with your ads and marketing in a way that is really qualified too. In terms of what else you could do with your database, the other shout might be polling this audience and finding out what they need. So you might have, say, 1,000 people sign up to your list. Rather than just selling to them, you could find ways to interact with them, determine what products they're after, ask them why they sign up to your list and how you could help. And that personal touch can really go a long way to informing how your website looks, how your copy looks, and uncover sort of nuggets of wisdom that otherwise might be missed.
Yeah, very true. That customer discovery is just absolutely magic. Okay. All right. So that's on data capture and CRM. The one before last is we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule of acquiring new customers and basically increasing revenue. Yep. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think are low-hanging fruits? I'm a small business and I have a couple of customers. What are some of the low-hanging fruits that I can implement that increase revenue, more customers?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So some quick wins. So the first one, say you've got a few customers, your business is emerging. First thing is ask your network. So ask your friends about your services and whether they know anyone who needs your services, and get that instantaneous feedback while you're going. The next is sort of your broader network. So you might have your LinkedIn connections, you might have people have already purchased, and you can ask them for a referral as well. The Another quick win would be the retargeting. So setting that up and getting that mopping up really effectively. And then it sort of varies from industry to industry. So I'll give you a specific example. My wife has started a kinesiology business, and we've started with retargeting and ads and all the things that we've spoken about today with a website. But some of the quick wins for her have been some of the low tech approaches as well. So she's done pamphlets in her local area, business cards, and posting in relevant groups. So we live in Elwood, and she's promoted her business in the Elwood group to get a couple of bookings. And when you're starting out, it's those immediate customers and those first few that you want to nurture and reward, because some of them will become repeat customers for a very long time.
Yeah, and probably I want to maybe drill down on that repeat customer component. I think one that, especially from entrepreneurial standpoint, it's very exciting to go after new customers and acquiring new customers. And one of the most low hanging fruits, I think, has been, at least definitely for us, has been upselling your current customers, and not going after existing customers, really understanding some of the needs that they have, and then trying to see if there are ways that you can offer other services. The statistics and the numbers in terms of cost of acquiring a new customer versus working with existing and upselling to existing customers are astronomical. In some cases is 20 times the cost of dealing with and selling to an existing customer. And I think focusing on, again, it depends on business models, right? It's if it's product based, it's a little bit harder. The product is a bit rigid, but it's service based, it's a lot more flexible. But focusing on that upsell and working with existing customers, in some situations looking at reducing the number of customers that you have, but increasing the kind of help that you're offering them could be absolutely valuable.
Yeah, and there's one build I want to make on that, which is just finding what works. So there's any number of digital marketing or marketing tactics that you can employ to acquire new customers, but it might be just 1 to 3 that work disproportionately better than the rest. And with that in mind, focus on those and get the data in and see what is converting for you, and then double down on that, because it's very easy to get caught up in all the options at your disposal, like Twitter, Instagram, email, CRM, database, retargeting. Like, it's overwhelming even for someone that's worked in it for some time. So find something that works and then just deploy it ruthlessly.
Yes, go to town. And I think we spoke about this earlier, where you mentioned the book Traction, right? Yeah. Which dives very deeply into this, and they have the framework which is called the Bullseye framework, where and I recommend that book to everyone. The book called Traction. There are 2 versions. There are 2 books called Traction if you Google. There's one with a black cover and the other one with I think like a light blue, and the light blue is the one we're talking about.
That's the one you want.
And the whole concept around Bullseye framework is that brainstorm and think about all the potential channels that could work for you, and then from there narrow your focus to maybe 5 or 6 of them that are really viable for you, and then go down to, just like Luke you were saying, look at 3. Don't get overwhelmed with all the channels that are out there. I also think, Luke, a lot of people say, yeah, it's marketing, and it's we go out there and we do a little bit of marketing, but when you look at the plethora of options that are out there, it's just so easy to get overwhelmed really quickly.
Yeah, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
Yes, exactly. All right, and the last thing that we want to talk about is the shiny stuff. It's MarTech. It's marketing technology. I know you feel very strongly about that, and that was kind of the main point that we brought this up, and we have this webinar. Tell us a little bit about tools.
Yeah, so marketing or martech is a trend that uh, works for, well, is advertised to a lot of businesses about how it can help. So there's social media management tools, there's you know, funnel optimizers. There's all sorts of things out there that you can buy that will help step change your business. But the point that I feel really strongly about is that if you've got an emerging business or one that's starting to gather steam, very often it's easy to get caught by the dazzle and lights of a shiny new marketing object or shiny new tool. When really, if you're getting the basics and fundamentals right and applying yourself diligently to some of the things we've spoken about today, they're going to have a much larger impact for your business than any tool ever will. Getting the basics and fundamentals right will leave your business a lot better than the shiniest tool that you could get.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, first of all, tools are exciting. You look at a tool and you're like, this looks really cool. And also, I think a lot of us look at tools as this is going to solve all my problems, and I'm going to pick this up and it's going to do magic. And just like you said, it usually doesn't. It's fascinating how sometimes ineffective, and they could also become really overwhelming because now you got to learn a new tool. How does it work? It's not working effectively. What should I do? Let's hire a consultant who can help us use the tool. And it's a rabbit hole that never ends. And again, going back to fundamentals is not as sexy, but it's a lot more effective.
Yeah, and when you think about it, those tools definitely have a place. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. But the businesses that need them are usually, doing the basics right, got the intermediate things really right, and are looking to get 1 to 5% gains on their business because they've done everything else that they need to with their marketing approach. So they definitely have a place. And I talked through a couple of tools briefly in this call, but don't jump to them first, I guess, is the takeaway message.
Cool. All right, we got a couple of questions. That kind of pretty much wraps up. So if anybody has questions, please shoot them through. We have Michelle that I think just did a recap. So on retargeting, whenever a user allow cookies on the website to be tracked, the pixel would be captured. Is that correct?
So I guess if you've got a pixel enabled and the person has allowed cookies on the website to be tracked, yes, absolutely, that will track them.
That's cool. And Stacy has a question. Are conversions more likely if you have pricing listed on the website rather than relying on an inquiry contact page? I'm not sure if pricing can scare people off where conversion can convert, specific to service industry where rates are quite high. That is filmmaking. That's a good one. I got a couple of things in that, but go for it, Luke.
So I'll start and then you can build on it, I guess. So, price for a high involvement purchase or high ticket item can definitely help, I guess, if you've got a lot of information on that website already about what the product is, what it's about. And I guess one of the lookouts, though, is that it encourages price shopping, and it might, for a high ticket item, you might want to educate the prospect more on what the value of your proposition is relative to other filmmakers before talking about price. And so, it's a very industry specific consideration and depends at what stage of the market you're in as well. Like you might be competing on price, and that would be fine. But if you're looking for a higher ticket item and you're a bit further up the chain, then qualifying that lead a bit more before talking about price might be the better approach. What do you think, Shahin?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, if you're competing on price, and if that's your kind of unique selling point, then have that price out there, and if you know that you can beat other people. But I think more and more we're seeing specifically more expensive products are removing pricing pages. So products that are specifically catered to enterprise level companies are getting rid of their pricing page. You see this the new developments with, for example, Amplitude. Some of the we were doing a lot of research on webinar tools. Some of the ones that are for enterprise level, they're hard to get pricing on them. So they're the companies that are more complex, and just like you said, it's a bit harder to communicate the value through just text, are removing the pricing from their website. Again, if you're competing on price, and if that's something that, and also if your product is super defined, right? You packaged it up, it's very clear, then you might want to think about putting them on the website. But like I said, as the price gets higher, you probably want to move away from displaying prices on your website. We have one question from, I think Scott is answering Stacey's question. And what about GDPR? Kylie asks, what are your thoughts on GDPR?
It's a nice curly one. So GDPR, for those who don't know, is legislation that's passed in the UK that is around data collection and the parameters of rules of engagement and how you could use that data. The consideration here is if you're running a business that's of global reach or touches the UK, it's a big consideration. If you're offering services, say locally or in Australia or APAC, it's less of a consideration. But the best advice I would give, if you are running at a scale that is enterprise level, is to get some advice around that and ensure you've got all your ducks in a row, because the last thing you need is the potential complications that come with a data breach or data violation of those particular laws.
Yeah, one of the things on GDPR is, it got a lot of hype last year, and you kind of see. I was talking to someone from Netherlands, and you kind of see it's dying down, and it got all those hypes, and what you realize is not much is happening on though the measures are in place, but it's not as, when something gets hyped, a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people cover it, but it's a bit more relaxed than a lot of people make it look like. But again, as you just said, if you're operating in Europe or UK, it's good to have a chat to someone who specializes in GDPR. We have one more question, which is, what's a good CRM tool you'd recommend? I think a lot of the audience are on the side that it's maybe a starting business, couple people in the business. If it was something on the B2C side, Luke, do you got any recommendations for someone who's starting out?
The simpler the better. So the ones that I've worked with, a CSV, and capturing the data is probably step one. But make sure you have a need for a CRM tool. The ones I've used are like HubSpot and Pipedrive, which open up other features. But I'd look for one that meets your needs, and there's so many out there that it's sort of hard to recommend one without knowing more about the particular business.
Yeah, I think it's very business dependent, but if you are in a B2B space where you're selling maybe services to other businesses, and you want something, and you have a deal size of maybe about 500 and more per deal, right? So 500 all the way to a couple of $10,000 per deal. I think a good starting point would be something like Pipedrive. Really good tool, very simple. Obviously, the first step is the CSV, is the Excel file. But if you feel like that, getting out of hand, it's Pipedrive. The HubSpot option is also not bad, but you got to keep in mind that the moment that you want to upgrade on HubSpot, it becomes extremely costly, and you all of a sudden are paying a lot of money. So yes, cool. I think that we're maybe about 10 minutes over time, but I think we've covered all the questions. Luke, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, or if they have more questions, what would be the best way to get in touch?
Best way is probably LinkedIn, but make sure it's a personalized message, because there's a lot of LinkedIn requests that come without any context. And so as long as you said you heard me, or you're interested or have a particular question, I'm more than happy to help.
Fantastic. Well, Luke, really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for jumping on a call, and thanks everybody else for jumping on a call. If you're in Melbourne, we've got an event coming up very soon. I think there's a way that I can also share the slides over here. So if you're in Melbourne, we've got an event coming up soon in the next couple of days. But also feel free to join our Slack community. We're going to put the recording of this on Slack. You can find it on growthcolony.org/Slack. And you could hear about all the other events that we have coming up. On that note, I think that's a wrap for this one. Thanks a lot, Luke. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Shahin. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.